This is where the personalities and power players of Kansas come to talk about life and lessons learned along the way. Our guest this week is Sarah Lopez. She has been working to shake things up and challenge the status quo as the first Hispanic woman ever elected to the Sedgwick County Commission. Her victory in 2020 over Michael O'Donnell narrowed the Republican majority on the commission 3-2. Lopez and fellow Democrat Lacey Cruz often ally as the voice of progressivism on the commission that has long been dominated by Republicans. Coming up, I'll ask about the challenges of that and also about the road that led Sarah Lopez to this prestigious position of power. And we'll see what advice she has for other young women of color who strive to succeed and rise to power in our white male-dominated society. This should be interesting as I go one-on-one with Sedgwick County Commissioner Sarah Lopez right now. Hello, I'm Victor Hogstrom. Thank you for joining us. I'm pleased to welcome Sedgwick County Commissioner Sarah Lopez to the program. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You are the newest county commissioner.
I am.
How does it feel?
Like all the emotions all at one time. I mean, everything is new and exciting, but challenging at the same time, and just trying to figure my way through it all.
So you've had a little bit of time now, about a year, to get acclimated to this new position. Was it what you expected, or less than you expected, or more than you expected?
It was probably more than I expected. I think I had probably a better idea of what the county did and all of the roles we played, maybe more so than the average person, but I didn't even realize the extent of the services that we provided and just how amazing our staff is at the county, and really how they've had to do so much with so little. And so it's a lot more in many ways than I had anticipated it being.
So take us back then to your beginning, growing up. You are from Wichita originally, born and raised.
Born and raised.
What was it like growing up in Wichita? And did you have plans to become a politician? You know you are a politician now, right?
I don't like that word, but yes, I suppose so. Well, I was born and raised here. I had no intention of going into politics. Politics was not part of my life plan in any way, shape, or form. So kind of veered off course a little bit, but I grew up in the Mays area. I was the only person of color that was in my neighborhood, that went to my school in my grade. My mother, I was raised in a single family household with my mother and my brother on my Scottish side. So I really was kind of the only one that looked like me, which I think prepared me in many ways for this role and just in life in general, good and bad, and everything in between. But went into healthcare and technology, which kind of led to this role because the county serves as the Board of Health as well for Sedgwick County.
So what interested you in healthcare and technology?
When I first decided, I was trying to think about what I wanted my life to be, I really thought nursing was where I was going to be. I started going to school to be a nurse. I worked at St. Francis at the time and did that for a few years, realized nursing was not necessarily my calling. Working bedside with people was fine, but I really struggled working with children. And so when I was pregnant with my middle child, I had to float to a pediatric unit and saw some things that were really hard to witness. And the next day I dropped out of nursing school and decided I needed to figure out a new path. I went for IT instead, and then when I graduated I just transferred over, and so I stayed with Ascension I was there for almost 16 years before I left and went to the county.
So your growing up days in Wichita, how would you say those days prepared you for leadership in today's society as a county commissioner?
Well, growing up had its challenges, obviously. I mean, I, again, was raised in a single family household, but I moved out on my own when I was 15.
Wow.
And that kind of prepared me. I had to grow up really fast and become independent. I ended up moving in a little later with my boyfriend at the time, who was my high school boyfriend. Then we were married for many years, and like many high school relationships, we kind of grew in different directions, but we're still very good friends. But having that different kind of path to adulthood, I think I did have to grow up a little faster, and I did have to figure out how to do things maybe differently than other people, which might gives me a little bit of a different perspective on everything, really. So I think it wasn't easy, right? But I do think it helped in the long run.
As you were growing up, your perspective growing up in your growing up days or during your growing up days compared to your perspective today as an adult, what did you see that was wrong compared to what you see today?
You know, I think really growing up, I saw a lot of the same things I see now. I do think that now I have a better understanding of maybe what some of that means as it relates to being a woman or being a person of color. I know growing up I always felt like I might have been treated a little different, but I didn't understand why that would be the case. I didn't know why, you know, friends' parents would treat me one way and treat another friend of their daughters a different way. I think I see things for what they are now, maybe easier than I would have at that point in time. But, you know, I have to realize that we all have our own biases, and we're trying to work through those as best as we can. But I think coming from that world gives me a better perspective of really how people think, and really how can I get things done with people that might not always agree with me or like me just because of who I am. And when I walk into a room, I am different than most people in the rooms that I'm in. So I think it's helped me because of that, but not always the easiest road to figure out.
You mentioned, which I'm sure will be fascinating to the audience when they hear this, that you moved out when you were 15.
I did.
Why did you have to do that?
Well, my dad was never really a part of my life, and when my mom got remarried when I was 13, we decided that it would be best if I moved in with my father. So I met him, moved in with him, realized pretty quickly that we couldn't start to parent at that age. And of course, being a teenage girl, I rebelled a little bit. And so we thought it would be easier if I tried it on my own for a while.
So then how could you have determined which direction you wanted to go in life in terms of a career? You left nursing and went into IT. How did you determine that?
I don't think I really did. I think medical has always been interesting to me, so I knew I wanted to go down that path. Had I really taken the time and had grown up in the way that I think a lot of people do, maybe I could have figured out my path a little bit easier, but it worked out well, and I'm happy I went down that, because medicine is still where my passion is, and health and making sure that people have access to healthcare is still probably the top thing to me. So at least I had the right direction. I might have went down the wrong path, but I think it did help in guiding not just my role at the county, but kind of what I would like to do after.
So do you still work in medicine, in the field of the medical field?
The county is a full-time job, so I had to leave my job with Ascension, which was really hard. I mean, that I was there since I was 18, so that was a lot harder than I had anticipated it being. But you know, my time at the county will end, and maybe I go back there, maybe not. I mean, we'll see what happens. But
now you've been on the county commission for a year. A year is not enough to make a determination about political ambition, but you know, you seem to have been doing well so far. What is your goal?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I don't have big political ambitions. I wasn't very hyper-political before this role, and I really want to make a difference in our community locally. I haven't given any thought to anything beyond that. I hope I can stay here for a little while and get as much done as I possibly can, and then I think with my personality, I do better maybe behind the scenes instead of right up front. So I would love to be, if I stay within government, maybe just not in an elected position.
Well, you did not plan running for county commission.
You're right, I did not.
So how did that come about?
That came about when my middle daughter had some issues at one of the schools that she was at. She was discriminated against, and I didn't feel like the non-discrimination policy at the Wichita Public Schools was as inclusive as it needed to be. So we talked with the Board of Education and got their non-discrimination policy updated, which was a big victory, and one that I'm just incredibly proud of my daughter for, because she had more courage at 11 years old than I think many adults do, more courage than I did at that time, and really kind of taught me to do what's right even when it's hard. And so that's what led me down this path, and I just wanted to make a difference for my kids, and I wanted my daughters especially to see that people that look like them can hold these offices, or go for these offices. Because when I would talk to them about what they want to do with their life and telling them that they can be anything they want, it's hard for them to picture themselves in roles like this if they can't see themselves or anybody who looks like them in them now.
So true. So you ran and now occupied the position that Michael O'Donnell had. If he had not been caught up in the scandal that he was caught up in, could you have won that race?
I don't think I would have won that race. I think it was really a perfect storm of everything had to happen exactly right for me to have ended up in this seat. I believe it was the day I announced Sedgwick County had our first COVID positive patient. And with the county commission serving as the county's Board of Health and making all of these really important decisions about stay-at-home orders and masking mandates and all of that, it was really apparent that nobody on our Board of Health had any medical background. And so it's hard to have politicians making those judgment calls when, working at a hospital, watching the meetings and hearing just a lack of understanding even about staffing in hospitals. It was really frustrating. And so I think because of COVID and then obviously all the scandal stuff that had happened, allowed me to get my foot in the door here. And now that I'm here, I have 4 years to prove myself, and hopefully we'll get some really important things done for the South Side and of course for all of Sedgwick County, and we'll see what happens in the next 4.
So describe that race. How did it go, in your opinion?
Goodness. I think I had an amazing team. We knew kind of the path we wanted to go down. Unfortunately, all the events and everything we had planned immediately had to be canceled because of COVID, and we had to figure out really what that looked like from scratch. So all online, all social media, and it was just a different kind of race that I hope nobody else ever has to do again. But I mean, it worked out. I lost on election night, as I'm sure everybody knows, which was not fun to feel like after everything, we lost. But a few weeks later, we found out that we won with the provisional ballots, which was incredible, but it was very, very close.
Wow. So what can county government do to help ensure affordable access to health care, in your opinion?
Well, I think it really starts at the state level. We need to pass Medicaid expansion because the county, we provide services through our health department, we provide services through ComCare for behavioral health, but we would be able to do so much more if more people had access to insurance through Medicaid expansion. Right now I'm looking into something called Cover Now Act, which is a way that local governments can go around states and do kind of a Medicaid expansion within its county borders. They're trying to negotiate that at the federal level, so I'm hoping that they have some success there. And then I have talked to Johnson County's health department, and we would love to do that together as a regional approach and expand Medicaid locally, even if the state won't.
Wow, ambitious.
It needs to happen.
It does, you're right. So we play a little word game. It's a word association game that we have for you today. What comes to mind when I say this word, beauty?
Internal.
Kindness.
Everywhere.
Evil.
Less prevalent.
Boredom.
Read.
Excitement.
Being outside.
Gender.
Fluid.
Grace.
Thankful.
white privilege?
Real.
Racism?
Also real.
Wow. And you are speaking from observations on
Absolutely,
this.
real life experience. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So then tell us, how long had you been considering this run for the county commission?
Not long. Not long at all. In fact, I met Commissioner Cruz at an event one night, and she said, "You should really think about running for county." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, you are out of your mind." And then I thought about it a little bit more. After everything with my daughter, I had been asked to run for city or state or different seats, and it never felt right. And then when I really sat down and thought about the county, if I was going to run for anything, this is where my background and my passion would really align well with. Also, because I am a single mom, I couldn't leave for a few months at a time for the state, and the city is supposed to be a part-time job, but you can't give part-time hours and do that job justice. So this was really the option for me if I wanted to run for office, and this is where it led me.
So, what kind of relationship do you have with your colleagues on the commission?
An interesting one, to say the least.
Interesting is an interesting word.
It is. It could mean a lot of different things.
Exactly.
Depending on the day. No, I mean, overall, my relationship with everybody is pretty good. I mean, everybody has a different background and different unique experiences that led them to this role themselves. And so leaning into their experiences and learning from them has been a huge help to me. And, with Pete especially, he's really taken me under his wing to explain why things are done the way they're done, or how...
That's the chairman of the current chairman.
He is, yeah. Yes. And so he's been a huge help, and I appreciate that. Of course, Commissioner Cruz and I get along very well. I mean, we have similar ideologies in many ways, and so it's nice to have another woman up there, because being the only woman, I can imagine, had to have been extremely hard on her for the first couple of years. So it's an ongoing relationship that we're still trying to build, but I do think it's good right now.
Great. Now, I'm sure there are some frustrations, especially being in the minority, Democratic side of the ticket of the commission, 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats. What are those frustrations that you sometimes experience?
Yeah, I mean, there are many frustrations. I think in many ways, some of our colleagues are wanting to go about things how they've always been done. And Commissioner Cruz and I, neither one of us have a background in politics. And so we ask different questions on why things are the way they are and why can't they be something different. And I think that perspective makes us a stronger board, because we have more of idea of other people's lives than that has been there before. But there's always frustrations. I mean, we really like to see us be more involved with social services, because the county provides these services, and we'd like to see them expanded or done differently where they have more of an impact. And so just trying to figure out really what the county is going to look like in 20 years from now, and not necessarily what it looked like 30 years ago, and trying to find that path forward.
Commissioner Lopez, you mentioned policies. So what policies or ordinances would you support that are unlikely to happen given the current political makeup of the county commission?
Well, right now we're talking about, are we as the county going to get more involved with homelessness? Because that's something that typically the city would have handled, but we're trying to do better when it comes to behavioral health and expanding services, and homelessness is a part of that. And when we look at, or when I look at social determinants of health, just in the public health realm, having a shelter is the #1 thing. And so nationally, counties are getting more involved with homelessness, and I think that Sedgwick County is on the path to joining them, but that's not an easy conversation, because that is such a large change, and that means that we have to prioritize our budget differently than we have in the past, and that's not going to be an easy thing to do, and it's not going to be everybody's favorite thing to do, but it's important, And if we care about the health of our community, then homelessness is a huge part that we have to start being leaders in.
What famous politicians on the local level, the state level, and the national level that you do admire most?
Well, she's not a politician necessarily, but my hero, my shiro, however you want to say that, is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean, she is an incredible woman who was able to get both sides to agree to vote for her to be on the Supreme Court. She was able to bring a different perspective and change minds of people that maybe never thought about things in the way that she presented them, which actually moved the needle in so many ways. I don't think had she done the work she's done in the past that I would be here now, because I don't know how many women would be in office, to be perfectly honest. So I think she set the path, and I'm just forever grateful for her.
That's the national level. Statewide, anyone?
Statewide, you know, a friend of mine, her name's Mary Ware. She's currently at the state right now, and her passion is just contagious. I mean, you hang out with her for an afternoon, and I'm typically a quiet person, but after I'm with her and I hear just how excited she gets about all these things, it gives you excitement and makes you want to go back and figure out how you can get to that level and really bring that out to everybody. So I think she's one that I've loved to just watch and listen to her speak.
And locally?
Locally, now she's also not a politician, but she's in the realm. And Danielle Johnson, she's the executive director for Habitat for Humanity. She's also the wife of City Councilman Brandon Johnson. When I first started getting involved locally, at the local level, I saw her speak. And one speech she gave in particular, and you could just feel her emotion as she spoke, and you knew what she meant because you could just feel it radiating off her. And I thought that was so powerful. And that night I remember thinking, if I could be half the leader that she is, then I feel like I would have made a difference.
So why hasn't she run for city council?
Well, we need to get her to,
or the county
or whatever the case
statewide
is.
Or something,
I
right?
would love to see her run for something one day.
So what advice, Commissioner, would you do you have for other young women of color who may feel like the deck is stacked against them?
To know that it is stacked against them.
To know that.
And it's unfortunate that that's the way it is, but it is the way it is right now. Nothing is going to change until more women and more people of color step up and try and make these changes. And the more of us there are, the less that deck is stacked against them. So I would say, get involved, let your voice be heard. Even if it's not running for office, get on boards, figure out how you can be at these tables that decisions are being made, because we need to have more people like that, and their background and their understanding and their life needs to be represented in ways that it's just not right now.
Wow, very interesting. So in your downtime, when you are not commissioning, when you're not thinking hard about something, how do you relax? What do you enjoy doing? What do you like to do for fun?
Well, I'm a parent. I have 3 kids. I'm a single mom, so that pretty much, if I'm not working, I'm parenting. But my son plays football, so that's been a lot of fun going through that and learning the game, because I didn't know anything about football. My middle daughter is a soccer player. I played soccer all growing up, so I love getting to play around with her and shoot on her. She's a goalkeeper. I coached her for many years, so that's really fun.
Did you play soccer?
I did,
wow.
My whole life almost. So that's been really fun. But I like to hike. I like to get outside with my dogs and be in nature and disconnect from social media and the internet and all of that, and just kind of breathe for a couple days in Colorado. If I could get away, that would be kind of my mental healing.
Right. And so what lessons then have you learned along the way from everything you've done?
Probably not to take yourself too seriously, because I think, obviously being just who I am, I think I have more scrutiny on me than everybody else would. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself to not make a mistake and to know that any mistakes I do make are going to be carried on by everybody that looks like me to follow. So try not to do that if possible, and let yourself breathe, and just enjoy the moment when you're in it, because most people don't get to experience this. And I know how lucky I am, and I'm very grateful that I get to be here and I get to make, some real changes that hopefully will last in this community, and I'm excited to get the chance to do that.
So what's the top of your bucket list?
As far as county stuff?
No, personal. We're talking personal, yes.
Well, I grew up playing the violin, and I really want to learn how to play the cello.
Okay.
And Commissioner Cruz gives me stuff all the time about just buying one, and I have not done it yet, but I do want to learn how to play the cello.
Well, why the cello?
I wanted to play the bass when I was growing up because I thought it was just a cool instrument, and my mom wouldn't let me because it was massive and I couldn't carry it.
Right.
So, but then growing up and being in orchestra for so many years, the cello really became my favorite. And so I've always wanted to try and learn how to play it. I think I could because I already know how to play a string instrument, but that takes time and energy, and I'll eventually get there.
Commissioner Sarah Lopez, former athlete, musician, politician, I may add. You don't like it?
Don't like that word, but that's okay.
But thank you so much for joining us
Thank
one-on-one. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it.
And thank you for watching this edition of One-on-One. One-on-one@kpts.org is our email address if you have a question or comment. Until next time, I'm Victor Hogstrom, and I will see you again soon.